Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Today, MLB On Fox has put out their list for the top 10 shortstops this upcoming season. Do we agree? Do we disagree? We're going to go over all that and more next.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Well, Carter, MLB On Fox has put out their list for this year. Who's going to be the top 10 shortstops? I do want to get into that, but I'll give you a quick rundown. We got sort of a lot of information to cover today. So we have this article that just came out. We also have some breaking news dealing with some prospects and some different players that got sent down with the Blue Jays. And then, of course, spring training recap as well. For those of you who don't know, I'm Braden Wasco, co-hosting with Carter First. You can find us on Twitter's Braden5 Wasco, Carter First 2. We're here covering Blue Jays every single day. We love this team. We're going to give you our bad takes. We're going to give you our good takes. We're going to give you some hot takes, sort of all over the map. We just love this team. We love talking about this team, and hopefully you guys love hearing about this team. So we want to get into this top 10 list fairly quickly. But Carter, our beer league team, we're keeping the fans up to date, and we know they want to hear about this. So our beer league team did lose today. Probably a heartbreaker because we expected to probably make it right to the final, but it didn't happen because we have had probably 3 guys show up.
Yeah, it was a corrupt league today. They purposely scheduled it so half of our team couldn't show up. A couple of our guys were coaches for another team that's a little bit more serious than our beer league team, unfortunately, so they weren't there. I had class today, night class, so tried to get it off with my prop. Didn't end up going too well. So I guess, I don't know if she's a loser in this situation or I am. Maybe we kind of both are. Braden just he's a big city, so he can't go back to town anymore. So he just wasn't really busy. He just didn't want to go.
I had to work.
There's a couple other people on vacation. It's tough. So we had about 7 players, and they had about 20, and that's what we said in the last podcast. Kind of tough to win games when you're pretty gassed, especially in the first period.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, I have to work. Like it's my shifts are all over the place. It is sort of an up and down schedule for me, and it just happened to be that this week I have all night shifts, and tomorrow we have another night game that I can't go to, working the Jets game. So again, can't really complain because I love working Jets games and, being able to be around the hockey world is fun as well. But today we want to talk about the baseball world and shortstops in specific because MLB On Fox has put out their list of their top 10 shortstops this season. We're going to get into our list, maybe not 10, but we have some disagreements in the top 5 for sure. So we're going to talk about our top 5 / sort of however long we want to go, just, sort of numbering some guys. But I will read off MLB On Fox's top 10 shortstops this season. Number 1 will be Corey Seager. Number 2, Mookie Betts. Number 3, Francisco Lindor. Had a tough time with that one. Trey Turner, Gunnar Henderson, Bobby Witt Jr., and then Bo Bichette at number 7. Dansby Swanson, number 8, number 9, Carlos Correa, and number 10, Elia De La Cruz. And Carter, I think there is some argument. You know what? I actually love the placement of Elia De La Cruz there because he had a bomb season last year. It was fun to watch. He was probably one of the most exciting players in MLB to watch in his games. He was just so electric. But going down that list, which one stands out to you as like the one that they're completely off base for?
I was sort of surprised that Bo Bichette was 7, just compared to the season he had compared to some of the other guys. I'm surprised that Ha-Seong Kim wasn't there. That's another guy that had a productive season last season, especially without Xander Bogaerts playing that shortstop position. Other than that, I don't think these rankings are bad. I've seen a lot worse from some MLB channels. I know the third baseman, the MLB.com actually released this one. They had Justin Turner at number 10. That can be debated by some fans. Getting older, definitely not playing any third base. So that's kind of the argument there. It's like, how did he qualify as a third baseman when he's going to play like 3 games there? But back to the shortstop thing. I have some similarities, but I also have some differences. I'm interested to what you have. But I'm going to get into my my top 10 first. I know you didn't get the chance to get the bottom 10 because we're really focusing on the top 7 here, mostly top 5. But I had Willie Adames at 10, Ha-Seong Kim at 9, Dansby Swanson at 8. And then, in my opinion, there's 7 shortstops that kind of have their own tier. I mean, Dansby Swanson, some Cubs fans probably aren't going to like this take from me, but I think he's just a little bit lower than these top 7 guys. So I'm going to just list off the rest of my top 10, and then we're going to compare with yours, Braden. So I have Gunnar Henderson, number 7, obviously a young guy, looked great towards the end of last year, a lot to build on. Trey Turner at 6, that might be an interesting one for some people. Obviously, at the start of the year, he didn't look great at all. Picked it up amazingly in the last 2 months of the season, was huge in that playoff run as well. Then I have Francisco Lindor kicking off the top 5. This one was a little bit of a tough one for me. I always remember the 2021 season with Lindor where he struggled a little bit, but he's been unbelievable the last 2 seasons. I think he falls off just a bit. He's still going to have a very productive year. And then I have Bo Bichette at number 4. Bo Bichette, his defense got so much better. Last season, he had a negative 16 defensive runs saved. This season, he had a +5. So he saved 5 defensive runs. That's a huge statement. That's why I have him bumped up to number 4 on this list. I got Bobby Witt at number 3, obviously signed that huge contract. Mookie Betts is the shortstop now as of a couple days ago for the Dodgers. I would have him as number 1 because I think he's the best hitter on this list by far. But I'm a little bit worried about his defense, just with the lack of games played at short. And then I do have Corey Seager, number 1, World Series MVP. Clutch in the playoffs. That's something that Blue Jays fans really want to see, is some more clutchness throughout the season. I think that one was sort of a no-brainer for me, just based off the all-around player Corey Seager is.
Yeah, so I did my top 7, and I will sort of get into some reasons why afterwards, but I will list them off. First, I had Gunnar Henderson at number 7. I had Francisco Lindor actually at number 6, which are probably going to piss a lot of people off. But just for the fact he's got insane numbers, great numbers, it's the average that falls off for me compared to other guys. And that's sort of what drove my decision. It's very tough. All these guys are like in the top 6 are very close for me. It's very tough to move guys around. But, when I look at different things, different stats, that's where I put them. I have Trey Turner just because this guy has proven it time and time again that he is a winner. He knows how to play. He just is awesome. And when he's having a down year, he seems to always be able to fix it in the back half. He's like known for that. Just like down the stretch, this guy turns it on to another level. Then I did have Bo Bichette at number 4, but actually I think I'm going to move him up to number 3, and I'm going to put Bobby Witt Jr. at number 4. Then I got Corey Seager at number 2 and Mookie Betts at number 1. And I know, me and you had a couple differences. I want to start out with the big one of my decision to go Bo Bichette over Bobby Witt Jr. And it comes down just to the fact that this kid is young. We don't know how he's going to play, in the next couple seasons. Yeah, he's played amazing. He looks fantastic out there. His average is a lot less than Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette, obviously, he gets hurt because he doesn't hit enough home runs. Me and you've talked about this. He just doesn't have that power always, but he continues to drive in runs even though he doesn't hit home runs. So the difference for me is Bo Bichette is a guy that his team needs to be good. They need him because he right now is the force that drives this team. He's the guy that drives in runs. He's the guy that can get on base. Bo Bichette can do it all right now, especially with his defensive runs saved this past year. He's taken a huge step forward, and I think he can only grow from here. So looking ahead to 2024, that's why I have him over Bobby Witt Jr.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Other than that, Bo Bichette, I think you just kind of misworded this. Bo Bichette is not a home run hitter. I don't think you can laugh at 24 home runs. I think what you meant is comparative to like these guys
That's
like
right.
Mookie Betts who had almost 40, Corey Seager who's going to be over 30 home runs.
Yeah.
I don't know if we ever. Here, I'll let you.
Yeah. So that's exactly what I meant. Bo Bichette obviously hits home runs. We've obviously seen him with the ability to do so. It's just the fact that, when I go up and down this list, Mookie Betts 39, Corey Seager 33, Bobby Witt 30, Trey Turner 26 after a pretty bad start, and then Francisco Lindor at 31. So obviously Bo Bichette hits less home runs, but his average is so good, and the amount of runs he can drive in, and the way he dictates the play in the baseball game. That's what I mean. More so, it wasn't a shot. It was just the fact that, looking at this, just strictly the numbers, he doesn't hit as many home runs.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for me to see Bo Bichette ever. Like, maybe he gets over 30, but I can't see him getting over 35 ever in his career. When you look at guys like Corey Seager, he had 33 home runs in only 119 games. That is ridiculous. Corey Seager could have hit 45 home runs this season. Mookie Betts, obviously, at 8.3 WAR, which is crazy. I'm going to break down in the top 5, some more advanced stats. I mean, nothing too crazy, just kind of some like doubles, home runs, stuff like that. Their lines. So the reason I had Corey Seager as number 1 is because of just how good he was in only 119 games. He hit 327, 42 doubles, 33 home runs, 96 RBIs. It's ridiculous. Mookie Betts at 8.3 WAR. I think that's really the only stat I have to say. That's ridiculous. I will throw in the 39 home runs. I guess that's nothing to laugh about either. Bobby Witt and Bo Bichette. That was something that I debated hard on as well. I know you just switched up on that. I still have Bobby Witt over him. And I just considering the jump that Bobby Witt made from his first season to his second season, the numbers that comparative were insane. I mean, just looking at his line here, 276, again, a little bit lower average, but 120 OPS plus, 28 doubles, 11 triples, 30 home runs, 49 steals for Bobby Witt Jr. And that's one of the main reasons that I have him over Bo Bichette. We might see Bo Bichette steal a couple more bases this year. Hopefully he can get to 15 to 20, but I don't see Bo Bichette getting 40 steals. Bobby Witt Jr. is the entire package. I think Bo Bichette's one of the most pure hitters in the league. He might be the best hitter in terms of contact and getting on base of all shortstops in the league. But when you combine it to what the Blue Jays are kind of lacking and what makes teams successful, I think Bo Bichette just has a little bit less power than guys like Bobby Witt, Mookie Betts, Corey Seager. You can argue for sure Francisco Lindor has more power, but I think Bo Bichette is more valuable to the team than Francisco Lindor is. And I think that Bo Bichette will produce more consistently than Francisco Lindor will ever.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And that's why I put Francisco Lindor pretty low on my list, just for the fact that he's not an average guy. Yeah, he can go up and swing the bat hard like nobody else. But at the end of the day, he's not as consistent. And the consistency is what really brought it out for me of Bo Bichette. And even Trey Turner. I mean, again, like I said, he's had slow starts before, but he's always able down. He might be one of the clutch players, in this league right now, which is just a crazy thing to say. So that's why Trey Turner passes him for me. But like we've talked about, any of these guys on this list are going to be pretty interchangeable, right? These are the top 6. But if we have to place guys, there is little reasons why, and that's why, and probably everybody's going to disagree on this list. There's going to be people in the comments that say Francisco Lindor is the best baseball player to ever play. Okay, well, we're giving you the numbers and we're telling you exactly why. The number that stands out for Francisco Lindor is his WAR. He had a 6 WAR last year, which is pretty unbelievable. But there's a lot of guys on this list that are right in that mix, right? Like, and the switch up from last year to this year could be, enough of a change to move these guys around at the end of when we, look back at this at the end of the year, right? Because Mookie Betts at 8.3 WAR, Corey Seager 6.9 WAR, Bobby Witt 4.4, Bo Bichette 4.9, Trey Turner 3.4, Francisco Lindor is 6. So I mean, just looking at those guys, those WARs going into this year, yeah, that's what it was last year, but it's going to change in this coming season. And that, I think, at the end of the year, we're going to look back and some of these numbers are going to be drastically different of where we've put these guys.
Yeah, and baseball is such a tough game to predict as well. Like, I mean, all of these guys are superstar players. They're never going to be horrible per se. But I mean, you see Francisco Lindor in 2021, that contract of over $300 million. People were really sketching, to say the least. And we're like, oh, I don't know if this is going to work out. We just paid Lindor for over 10 years and he was horrible this year. But obviously that did work out. And like you said, these are very interchangeable. It kind of depends on how these younger guys progress. Like, you can have Gunnar Henderson probably in the top 3, maybe by the end of the year. You might have Bobby Witt as one of the best shortstops in the league by the end of the year. It's a bunch of different guys. Trey Turner is one of the guys for me on this list that kind of gives me the most worry, unfortunately. You said he was one of the more consistent guys. I don't know. I just watching last season, just with Trey Turner, it didn't look like he was very comfortable. But I mean, when you looked at the second half of the season, especially those last 2 months, he was unbelievable. Does he keep that going? I don't know. His averages and everything were a little bit lower than they normally were. But that was because he struggled so hard in those first few months of the season. So it's tough to keep Trey Turner out of the top 5, and that's why I have him at 6. But I think, like you said, these top 7 of them, you had said 6 because I've Gunnar Henderson in there, but they're very interchangeable. I can see pretty much anyone on this list being anywhere in the top 7 by the end of the season.
Yeah, and I could definitely see Gunnar Henderson being there as well. I think it's just that the fact that he's not as proven. Like, when you look at Bobby Witt's numbers, it's a decent amount better, and he's a young guy as well. So I think that's why he really didn't fit into, when I say top 6 is because I consider these 6 guys as the elites. Gunnar Henderson's maybe a touch lower right now. And going into the season, he could definitely change my mind on that. I think he has the potential to do that. But as of right now, that's where I have him.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see it with this upcoming season. Hopefully, Bo Bichette can even get to number 1 on this list. Like maybe we see him hit 35 home runs and he proves me wrong. I would definitely love to take that on the chin and be like, yeah, Bo Bichette, I discredited you. I should have knew better. And you see it in spring training. He has been unbelievable so far. He's really going with this approach to hit that ball back up the middle, opposite side. He seems like he's getting 2 hits almost every spring training game. So Bo Bichette, I think, is going to be one, if not the best player. Him and Vladdy will be the top 2 players offensively on this team.
100% agree. And I mean, I think we were talking about a bounce back from Vlad all year, and I think that it's going to be realized. I think this spring training sort of starts to prove that. And I think as soon as we get into this season, everybody will be a little bit shocked about how quickly this guy bounces back. We do want to talk about some breaking news coming out of spring training, and some guys getting sent down. Carter's pulled up a couple things to talk about here, and then we do want to still get into our spring training recap of the game yesterday, and looking ahead to a couple more. So we're going to get into all that and more next.
Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Football season may be over, but the action on the floor is heating up. Whether it's tournament season or the fight for playoff home court, there's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments for this time of the year. Getting on the excitement with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. Test your skills on Prize Picks this season, and is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can easily turn $10 into $1,000 with just a few taps. Today, I did check out the Prize Picks website. I decided that I was going to be a little bit more of a degenerate like Boy and get in on the betting scene. So in my first day on Prize Picks, I had Joel Eriksson-Ek over in points. Already lost in that first one. I did have the other 2, though. I had Kirill Kaprizov over 1.5, and I had Connor Bedard over half, which was crazy for his point total, is considering he put up, I think, 5 today. So 2 for 3. Unfortunately, it's not going to get it done for me, but hopefully you guys are better at picking these daily fantasy matchups than I am. So what you guys can do is you can go to Prize Picks today and download the app and use code LOCKEDONMLB for the first deposit matchup of $100. That's Locked On MLB for a first deposit matchup of $100.
I think that's the first time you've ever used my nickname directly on the channel.
That is true. Yeah, we might have to get into a backstory of that. You want to give him a rundown real quick?
Yeah, I can. So everybody calls me Boy now, or Boy. It depends. It's one or the other.
Pronunciation, really.
Yeah, everybody says it a little bit differently, but it came down to the fact. I think I was like 12 or 13, maybe at the time, and I was at my brother's hockey game, and there was this guy. He called himself Chaos, and he would do parkour. For those of you in the early 2000s who knew what parkour is, and he asked me one time, because I was just sitting there sort of watching the game or whatever, watching the practice, and he goes, "Hey, can you mind just like holding my camera for me while I do this?" I was like, "Sure." Like, well, I was there, right? Like I was looking for stuff to do. So I'm like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." And so then he's like, "Whatever. Do you want to try something?" I said, "Okay, sure." So I did it. And then he goes, and then at the end of the video, he goes, "Hey, I want to," and he used his his initials as his name or whatever. That's what spelled Chaos. So he goes, "I want to thank my cameraman, Bui." And then he posted it, I guess, and everybody saw it. And then everybody started calling me Bui. And I've been known as Bui since probably grade 8?
Oh, at least. And
it's been 10 years at least.
And then in baseball as well, you were the only grade 9 on the team your initial season. And the chant you had was very interesting. BWWE, where is he from? And then everyone yells high school as loud as they can. A little bit of an interesting chant for sure. I think I would like to see what opposing dugouts were saying when that happened. And
we were winning actually in a semifinal game. And they thought, so everybody was chanting it because I hit like a double to score 2 runs or something, right? And then I was pitching that game as well. And so whatever. And I was carving up, as I do. And then the other team tried to get in my head. So every time one of their batters would come up, they would say their name and then where's he from? And they would all try to like just say high school. And then it like didn't work because like it wasn't the same. And then we won that game. So
Do you remember the ground ball kids that every time they had a guy come up to the plate, they just decided to sound like motorcycles, and it was like the most annoying thing ever?
yeah,
Like,
I think I was coaching by that time. I don't think I was still playing, but
yeah,
yeah.
I just remember that. I don't even want to make the noise for this podcast because you guys might tune out immediately if I make it. But just literally think of the sound of a motorcycle like revving and starting. That's what it was the entirety of the game. We only played 7 innings in high school, but you could see if we're playing at 8 in the morning and all of a sudden you're just hearing this, it's gonna put a little bit of a fire under your butt, to say the least. But enough about your nickname there. I guess I'm getting a little bit more comfortable in the podcast. I'm
Well,
actually surprised.
should I say what your nickname is then as well?
No, we'll wait for another
Okay.
episode.
Oh,
Maybe
okay. I'll
we'll
save
let
that
you
one.
get your guard down a little bit.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
kind of
I'll
funny
save
though,
that.
because in person, like I don't remember the last time I've called you Braden actually. So it's something that I do for the podcast. Maybe who knows, see if the fans like Billy. Maybe we'll start going with Billy on the
You
podcast.
you know what's hilarious? Outside of my mom and my dad, nobody calls me by my actual name. Oh, at work they call me that too sometimes, like my actual name. But then I have nicknames at work too, so I don't even hear Braden Iwasco like ever anymore.
Yeah, you almost don't even turn your head anymore. Like
No,
who's
I
this
don't even know
Braden
who
guy?
that is. I don't even know who that is. Anyway, I think it's enough about the nicknames. We do have some spring training news to get into. Do you want to let us in on the first one?
Yeah, so the first one is actually some roster moves. This happened a couple days ago, but we were just so busy with the Votto signing and how that Monday episode went with how long we talked about the AL East standings. Obviously, very passionate about it. We didn't have the chance to go over this. So there was 4 roster moves. For me, there's really 2 of them that like actually matter more so. So the first one is Stuart Barrera. He was, if you guys remember as Blue Jays fans, not a guy that's really done anything in the major leagues, but he could fly on the base paths. So that was a guy that like you could think about watching maybe in some pitch running situations. But he got reassigned to the minor league camp. And then Yosfer Zuleta, another guy, got optioned to AAA. I didn't go into his stats because he had such a bad opening day start that it just inflated all of his stats. I think he pitched like a third of an inning and gave up like 4 runs. So right away, that would just kind of threw him off. Again, not a very highly touted prospect. The 2 guys that I think most Blue Jays fans are going to be the most invested in are Addison Barger, the number 6 prospect in the system, gets sent down, and the number 2 prospect, Orelvis Martinez, gets set down as well. So I do have their stats quickly over the spring training. I'm going to go over Orelvis Martinez first because unfortunately it wasn't great for our number 2 prospect. I know he is only 22 years old, but we were looking for a little bit more offensive upside in the spring training. Again, it is spring training, but this is the time for prospects to showcase their talents. So he had 20 plate appearances. He had only 188 with a 566 OPS, 3 hits, 0 home runs, 2 RBIs, 3 walks, 3 Ks. Just not going to get it done when there's such a big amount of competition, especially for second and third base positions. And just looking at this roster from second base and third base, there's so many different players, right? So you bring up Orelvis Martinez, you bring up Addison Barger, you have them in the lineup opening day. It's going to be the same thing as the Davis Schneider experience. They're going to be playing once a week. It's not going to be worth it. It's going to ruin their development, and it's going to screw over the team in the long run. So quickly, I'm just going to throw out Addison Barger's stats, and I'll get Braden's reaction here. So he's the number 6 prospect, obviously, like I said. He had 19 plate appearances, hit 357, a 929 OPS, 5 hits, no home runs, no RBIs, 4 walks, 5 Ks. So a lot more success for Addison Barger, a guy that people were having their eyes closely on this spring training, but it's kind of the same story as Orelvis Martinez. As soon as you get that IKF signing, it was kind of, for me anyway, it clicked in my head that these prospects probably won't get the time this year, even though their clock was supposed to start in 2024. Maybe they do have an impact later on in the year. Obviously, a lot can happen. There could be injuries, trades. Maybe they're hitting 400 in spring or in AAA, and we want to bring them up. Why wouldn't we? So that's going to be something to watch in AAA for those players, and we'll have to see what happens with our opening day roster and our major league roster throughout the season.
Yeah, and then those stats obviously stick out to me. Me and you had our eyes on him pretty much right from when we started this podcast. I think we brought him up saying, that he was a guy we were really, really paying attention to. But yeah, there's no roster spots. There's no room for these guys, which sucks. But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that shows that we're deeper and better than having to bring up prospects early, which I think is a good thing. But yeah, no, I still would like to see them, and I think they will get playing time, or Barger will, I think for sure. Orelvis Martinez will have to see just about how he does this season. But I think, yeah, I think Barger will come in for a few games, later on in the summer, most likely.
Oh, it'd be nice to have a power hitting first baseman because you're definitely not going to get that out of IKF, unfortunately. So I do have another thing I wanted to bring up. This is just a bunch of random logistics throughout the spring training. So just some from Ben Nicholson Smith, some Blue Jays hitting notes. Vladdy was still sidelined with a knee injury day to day. Not very concerned. Joey Votto could be in tomorrow for a minor league game. That'd be cool to see. Obviously, Votto, one of the best Canadians to ever do it. It's going to be weird to see him in Blue Jays blue, but I'm very excited for it. Some Blue Jays pitching notes. Kevin Gausman was slated to throw another bullpen session. He's trying to work towards live ABs, get another spring training start, obviously having that shoulder soreness. And Yariel Rodriguez throwing live BP today to a group including Joey Votto. So that is interesting as well. It's hopefully Yariel Rodriguez, we can see him in spring training because that's a guy that has the most question marks surrounding him for sure when comparing all of the Blue Jays pitchers. So one more thing, not necessarily spring training involved per se. It's more of an MLB thing here, but it does have some real life value here. And Tim Mayza on MLB The Show, he is ranked a 69 overall. That is like relievers don't get rated high on these games anyway. But just the lack of respect for Tim Mayza and how effective of a season he had last season. He had a sub-2 ERA, was one of the best pitchers on this bullpen, was one of the best left-handed pitchers out of the bullpen in the league. So the fact that he is under a 70 overall is blasphemy.
Well, I will give you this piece of information. I found out this a couple years ago. I actually played and when I was younger, I played in an MLB The Show tournament, second in Manitoba, just putting that out there. But I did play in a tournament, and I came to know that MLB The Show takes 3 years worth of stats to make these overalls. So that is probably what's lowering his overall, of course, as well as he's a bullpen guy. They don't get as high of averages unless you're the closer. That's just usually how these games roll. So yeah, he's getting slighted a little bit, but at the end of the day, does it really shock you when you look at sort of all of baseball and who's getting love right now? How much media attention does this guy really get? It doesn't really shock me. I think it's low. Like that's sort of criminally low, I think. Like if you give him a 72, I think that's like fair. I could like understand that. Maybe even a 71, like at least make him like I don't know what a bronze starts out on that game, but he might be still a bronze.
You know what the average for a reliever would be? Do they normally set at like 75 per se, or do you want to give the audience just a ballpark of what they're normally at?
Yeah, usually they like go through and they sort of average out the bullpens a little bit, where it's not like like there's not going to be a team with 3 gold, 4 gold relievers, right? You might have like 2 golds, a diamond, and a silver, or a couple silvers or something like that, which I think silver starts at 75. So I would say there's usually like 3 silvers, a gold, and a diamond if your team has a really good reliever. Like I would assume Romano, I think he was a gold last year, but he might end up being a diamond this year. I don't know. I haven't really given the overalls a huge look at. But I think I'll be getting the game here in the next few days, so I can go over some of the Blue Jays overalls maybe when that releases. I believe on the 14th, I think it releases.
Yeah.
So I can, I'll do like a rundown on where the Jays land at opening day for that game.
See, for me, I don't play MLB The Show that often. So like this part of like the overall doesn't really matter to me. It's just the lack of respect Tim Mayza is getting. And you said on MLB The Show, they do use the last 3 years, but even in 2023 and in 2022 and 2021, Tim Mayza was still really good. He was just over a 3 ERA guy from the left-hand side. I don't think that that consistency of numbers should be rated under a 70. And it's just that Tim Mayza gets so underrated in today's MLB, along with a lot of other elite pitchers, to say the least. But I think that this should just bring light to how much Tim Mayza is being underrated. And we should give Tim Mayza a little bit more media attention, things like that, because he does deserve it.
Yeah, it is totally a reliever situation, right? That's just all of baseball. These relievers don't always get the recognition they deserve because they're not the guys coming in to start the game or to finish the game, right? So, yeah, it's one of those things that I don't know if there's anything you can do about it. That's just the situation they're in. Because, yeah, obviously if Jordan Romano strikes out the side to, get a Blue Jays win, he's going to get more attention than the guy who came in the seventh inning. Maybe gives up no runs, but he came in the seventh inning. Some people, that aren't avid baseball fans are maybe turning the game off and turning it back on for the ninth inning, right? It's just one of those things.
Yeah, that is true. Usually, the average MLB fan does know closing pitchers a little bit better than the rest of the relievers. So, before we get into our last segment here, Braden, there's something that you've been teasing a little bit on this podcast that you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, as you guys know, Locked On has launched their first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Today, Sports Today. Baseball fans, mark your calendars for March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern for the best MLB season preview coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today. Of course, I was a part of this. It was a blast actually getting to meet everybody, get to know everybody. It was awesome. So again, on March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern time, be the first to get local insights from the MLB local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Find it on March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern on Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It was an absolute blast. I hope you guys enjoyed. Go check that out. I'll be tuned in. I want to sort of, see what kind of bad takes that I had. As Carter likes to call me, bad take boy. So there you go. But yeah, we do want to get into a little bit of spring training stuff to wrap up this episode. And we'll get into all that and more next. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all of the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guaranteed, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. As you know, I went to a couple Jets games, and I've been looking over some Blue Jays tickets as well, and they have some killer deals. And, the good thing is that I can see my view from the seat. So I know if I'm getting the best deal possible. They also have this green little dot or a red little dot to tell you if the prices are great. So it's the best way to get your tickets. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event. And even an hour after it starts, it's the place to find last-minute seats. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So as we talked about some spring training news and stuff, we want to go over today's game or yesterday's game, as we did best the Yankees 8-1. And any day that we beat the Yankees is a good day, even if it is in spring training. Something that sort of I wanted to touch on was another Jose Barrios start. It was three and a third innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 run given up, 3 strikeouts, and 1 walk. It was a pretty good outing, honestly. It wasn't, it wasn't anything that, blew me away, but I think overall I was pretty happy with sort of what he produced today.
I don't know if you looked at this, Braden, but you know what Jose Barrios' ERA is? Just take a guess.
For the preseason?
Spring training?
I didn't look. If I think back to what he's done, how many innings, I'll say like a 1.1.
That's pretty close. It was 1.08. But this guy has been absolutely filthy. And he's never going to put it up in the strikeout numbers per se, but he's going to give you the longevity. He's going to eat up innings. And this is what this guy's been doing his entire career, other than 2022. That's just a weird year for Jose Barrios. You can see how much he struggled and how hard he took it on himself. But this is a guy that could be an ace on pretty much any other team when you look at it. Obviously, Kevin Gausman is here, but the amount of numbers this guy's putting up is insane, and how consistent he is all the time. The stuff he has is nasty. That slider he has is ridiculous. The amount of swing and miss stuff this guy has is unreal. And I think as Blue Jays fans, we're very lucky to have so many just dogs in our bullpen that can really take it to opposing teams like the New York Yankees, those bums.
Yeah, no, I just want to point out how great of an unbelievable guess that was. Ran some quick numbers in my head. You
were right on the money there. I don't have his innings pitched. I just got his ERA because I thought that was interesting, to say the least. And just going over some other bullpen starts. Like the rest of the bullpen looked really good today. Connor Cook was there. Zach Pop goes, no earned runs. The rest of them probably not going to make a huge difference for the Toronto Blue Jays. But just looking at the offensive explosion, you had Justin Turner who had a trio of singles, drove in 2 runs. Dalton Varsho continues his hot pace, 2 for 3. Alejandro Kirk, a guy that is so primed to have a bounce back season. I'm so ready to see Alejandro Kirk fully back and hitting closer to 300, walking all over the place, just getting guys on for our big hitters. George Springer had another decent day, sort of building on his lackluster start to spring training. And that's why it's hard to take these spring training stats at face value unless they're Jose Barrios. He's just a dog like that. But with the rest of them, I mean, like, it's tough because you just look at our pitchers, right? That if the Yankees launched off of our single A bullpen guy, who really cares, right? So it is nice to see that the Blue Jays are scoring runs, because that's something we didn't do at all last year. And it's nice to see that Justin Turner, guys like that, George Springer, who had a little bit of a down year last year, Dalton Varsho, all these guys are starting to bounce back. So it's something to get excited about for Blue Jays fans. I love baseball being back, but I hate that it doesn't matter, because it's tougher for me to get excited about these wins. But this one, I feel like we had to really break down because it was against the Yankees.
Yeah, of course. It as much as they don't matter, anytime we beat the Yankees, I will take that as a win. So yeah, I mean, we saw a lot of good guys have some good days, which is nice to see. But again, we don't put much stock into this. We've talked about this, and we can't switch up just because it was the Yankees. This doesn't overly matter, but we're seeing good signs from a lot of guys. And that's why when we saw some rough look from Alek Manoah, we were a little bit worrisome, because it didn't look like anything that we said needed to be fixed was fixed. But the rest of these guys, yeah, they're really coming alive. Seeing a good start for Alejandro Kirk might be the cherry on top of this season. If he can be good, we get a bounce back from Vlad. Our pitchers stay healthy and stay, as good as they are. Yeah, I think it's going to be a very good Blue Jays season.
Yeah, I don't know if we talked about this on the podcast, but we definitely talked about it off camera. We were just talking about how Alek Manoah obviously had that rough start in spring training. And you said for sure, you're like, I think Alek Manoah might need a phantom IL stint. And here he is with that shoulder soreness. He's pitching off a flat ground. Haven't seen him since that first start. Maybe he kind of got back in the lab, didn't want to ruin his confidence too much. But that is definitely something to monitor for the rest of spring training. Before we do find out, I just want to bring up our Locked On 24/7 streaming channel one more time. Whenever you guys want to tune into that, it's available 24/7. Just go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe.
Yeah, and just before as we go, we did talk about the Manoah thing and the sort of mystery behind what's really going on with that. I fully believe that it is a confidence saver, and they're going to try to start him in that rotation to start off. And hopefully that works. Hopefully he gets in the lab and tries to figure out what's going on. But I mean, he's had a whole year to work on that. So that's what's scaring me a little bit. But at the end of the day, there's nothing more we can do except sit here and wait for his first, regular season start. As always, thanks a bunch for watching. We hope you guys can throw us a sub down our way if you haven't already, as we know that there's not, a lot of our viewers don't tend to be subscribed. So if you could do that, that helps us a bunch. Comment, like, do whatever. Check us out on Twitter, Braden 5 Wasco, Carter First 2, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.